Blog Talk Radio, the world's largest online radio network.
Hello, it is Friday night, and this is the Jammin Jukebox radio show. This is your host, DJ Delta Dawn, and I am so excited to bring to you our guest tonight. She is beautifully and talented, and she's a pop artist, and she has an amazing voice. And you just heard her in the opening number, and I'm talking about Scarlett Rabe, and that was her song, Never Know. And I'd like to introduce her to you now. Hello, Scar.
Hi, Dawn. How are you?
I'm great. How are you this evening?
I'm lovely. I'm happy and kind of tired, but quite lovely. Thank you.
Well, we appreciate you being with us tonight and taking time out of your very busy schedule to spend some time with us and the listeners. It is.
I've been really looking forward to it. Really,
I know, likewise.
Looking forward to it. Yeah.
I know, it's been amazing. The first time I heard your music, I was just in awe because the range on your voice is just absolutely incredible. You have quite the range.
Thank you.
I know. I really love, I came across your song, Never Know, which is what I opened the show with, and I was like, wow, this is catchy, this is fun, but her voice is amazing. So I knew at that moment I've got to get her on. I've got to get the listeners have got to hear this. So we've been, playing your songs pretty heavily since I received your music. And thank you, by the way, for sending that over to us. And it's just been great to have it added to the mix of what we do here. And even better that we were able to finally, come together and set a time so we could, sit down and have a little chat about what you do and where things are headed for you. I guess the best way to kind of start out tonight is to ask, where did you get your musical beginnings, or how long have you actually been singing and so forth?
Well, I guess I've been singing my entire existence, possibly even when I was still a fetus. And according to my mom, I just came out really, really musical. There's this, kind of funny story about when I was 3, and I got on the piano bench and started playing this little sonatina that my mom had just finished teaching to one of her piano students. And I don't remember that happening, but my mother tells me that she freaked out, and I can imagine that she would. And I was just kind of playing by ear, but I guess was just really natural at it. I don't remember ever a time in my existence that I wasn't a pianist, so it was pretty early in my life.
Well, and that was you answered my question. I was going to ask you if you were playing piano on the hit we heard as the show opened, Never Know.
Yeah, there's not a lot of piano in that track. I play almost all of the instruments on my album, with the exception of the horns, because I'm not a horn player. But there was some guitar in there. Not a whole lot of piano in that track, but other ones are much more piano heavy.
Well, you're very, very talented. As I've listened to several of your tracks off of your EP, I've been amazed because every track is very different from one another, and just you really can see the range that you have and how it is showcased on each track. I mean, it is just amazing. And honestly, I have not heard a vocalist that had the range that you have and have perfect pitch, probably since the likes of Mariah Carey. She just can go all over the place. But
no, you did not just put me in a sentence with Mariah Carey. Like, I don't know if I can let that one. I don't know if I can let that one stay. But thank you. That's really sweet.
I think when I think about and I'm no music teacher. I'm no American Idol judge or anything like that. But the thing about it, your music is your sound. Your voice is just so crystal clear, and you just make it sound effortless when you sing. You don't, you reach those notes, but yet it just doesn't sound like you're having to work that hard for them, and it just comes off very, very believable. And so, of course, you know, that was kind of what came to mind when I heard your music, because I was like, wow, you know, and, you know, your voice is just amazing. So,
thank you. Thank you. That's very
sweet. So let's talk about this music, your EP. How long did it take you to kind of get it together and put it together from start to finish?
Well, I would say I actually made a huge collection of songs. I spent about a year in the studio, and previous to that, I had just been mainly like classical pianist, and my life before that was it was kind of interesting. In my house, there was a lot of like Christian music, religious music. My parents were intensely religious, and then obviously a ton of classical music. But anything outside of those two kinds of music, there wasn't really anything allowed except for just like little snippets that I would hear like on the bus or at an assembly at school and stuff like that. And I actually snuck. There was a radio show. I don't even know like what it was, but her name was Carla Fox, and it was 99.9 in Arizona. I don't even know what the show was, but I would sneak like listens at night sometimes to that show. But anyway, so when it came time for me to like decide that I wanted to do an album, I was still really, really fresh, I guess, and didn't really know what the stuff inside my head would sound like outside, you know, in the air. So I spent like a year, and I produced tons of songs, like everything that I, you know, had wanted to put down. And I chose for the EP just like the 6 that were the most, like, I guess, like easily listenable or whatever, but the things that I love to do, like, go everywhere from like jazzy, you know, like bluesy chanteuse singers, all the way to like, you know, Love in an Elevator, and so it's just you know. So I chose just like a small sampling of the ones that I've done, and so you know, I don't know if I could say how long it took me to do, you know, that specific part of the EP. It was just more of a journey that I started and have kept doing since. You know, even though I released the EP almost a year ago, I've been writing more and in the studio more, producing more, and you know, still discovering what it is that I'm going to sound like when I don't know, guess when I reach what I know I am. I'm still kind of in that journey right now.
Well, I love how you describe that, because when I listened to your EP, I was, you know, it really is a good compilation of a lot of different styles and genres of music. And, you know, one song you might get, you know, a little bit of jazz or, you know, this, and then you might get a rock edge to another song. It just, like I was saying earlier, it just really showcases your talent as an artist. And, you know, a lot of artists, they have that one genre or that one niche that they, you know, kind of, you know, envelop themselves within. And that's their thing. And it's always refreshing when you can have an artist like yourself that can kind of step out of that box, so to speak, and do more than just, you know, what people might know you for or what have you. It's really nice because it does offer a lot of versatility and, you know, a lot of diversity in terms of your music. So it's like you have a lot to offer, you know, all different types of listeners of music, which is really nice.
Yeah, and it's so fun to kind of put, you know, a different hat on for the day and try something else. I will say, though, that, you know, like as a pianist, there is like a certain amount of work that you put into like just being able to play something like at perfect speed or like with perfect technique and fingering and everything, and then you get it to that point, and then after that you're allowed to kind of let it fall apart a little bit, but on purpose. And like you can play with the timing and you can play with some of the interpretation, and like, so I guess if you were like to draw a line, before you get to that place where you can do it perfectly, like without any slowing down or any mistakes or anything like that, it still might be like a little bit taken apart and not quite, put together. But then the taken apart and not quite put together on the other side of being able to do it perfect is a different thing, because you're in control of everywhere where you're letting it fall apart or you're letting it be like a certain thing, and that's been my focus. Like, I guess that's kind of an analogy for an artist who maybe could like do a bunch of different things, but it's been really my focus to still discover what it would be if I could focus all of those things, and have the discipline to focus it all into something that is, cohesive. So it would still be, does that make sense? Because then after that, it's like, yeah, sure, you can go off and do a jazzy thing or whatever, but, I do still feel like it's really important for the listeners to not be confused by who I am and what exactly it is that I'm trying to create. So that's kind of, it's kind of the two-way street of loving and creating so many things at the same time, like really, really focusing on the discipline of pulling it all together. Like I talk about food a lot because I'm also just a food enthusiast, and so sometimes you'll be in a restaurant and the things are like, oh wow, this chef can do like Indian and Asian and Mexican and all these things, but it's a confusion. Like when you order your meal, the spices fight with each other, and each individual thing might be really lovely, but to enjoy it as a meal is very confusing for your palate. And then you'll be in another restaurant where the chef has all of those same skills, but somehow he can put it together in a way where it all just blends in harmony and the whole experience is incredible. And that's kind of, there's just like the only difference between the two is that like final finessing and the discipline that it takes to get there. So that's a really long answer, and I honestly can't even remember what the question was.
Well, that's kind of right, and I like your analogy because when you kind of take the other side of the music aspect, I'm sure in doing it that way, it really must stretch you and challenge you in ways that that you had yet to be challenged, but that's got to make you a better artist overall. And I think too it broadens your creative boundaries in terms of what you can do as an artist, and experimentation in music especially is always really I think something that never ends, because that's how some of the genres that we have were born, was by people just taking a sound or taking a song and going, I wonder if we do it this way, how it will sound. And, a lot of that has to come into play, I would imagine, being an artist, because an artist is an artist. I mean, it's, a music artist is kind of along the same lines as what I would consider like an artist that draws or paints, because there's experimentation in that, as well.
Absolutely.
And I think the more that you do, and that's just so indicative of what it was a great way to describe that, because that is exactly what I got out of your album. I was never confused by it. What I saw was the fact that you have an ability to be able to do many different things, but still stay true to who you are as an artist, and that kind of, as a whole, makes you who you are. And that is kind of like the identifier for, Scarlett Rabe. So, and I think all artists seek that identity for themselves, so that when listeners hear those first, 5 seconds of a song, they immediately can say, oh, that's so-and-so,
Right.
And that is your style, and that is, like I said, it's really, it offers something new and refreshing to music, because you don't have a lot of artists that have that kind of range versatility. Always experimentation, but when you have someone that can kind of do a lot of different things with music like you do, that's a very unique thing and quite a gift, because not every artist possesses that, So that is
hopefully,
that makes you a
hopefully
lot
it will
more.
allow me to keep making keep making music until I die. Hopefully I'll.
Well,
be able to
I mean, you took the words right out of my mouth. It pretty much. I mean, because it gives you the ability to do a lot more with your craft and your talent than for a lot longer period of time. So.
I don't ever plan on stopping, so that's
well.
good. Cause
I don't think you should. I mean, you are so talented, multi-talented at that. That is something that you were born to do this. Let's just put it that way. So
I've definitely been at periods in my life where I fought against my desires to do this because. Especially, growing up in the way that I did, it's not like I was trying to admit to something that was shameful or secretive, but at the same time, everybody's opinion is that, if you're just going to be a songwriter, pop star girl, that's just such a down kind of... and so for the longest time, I just kind of felt like, I should stay elevated, I guess, and I really feel bad that was my opinion because I can honestly say that this world pushes me and challenges me and thrills me so intensely, and so it's not a downgrade, but at the same time, there was a long time where I just felt like, I wish I could just get these silly songs out of my head and, focus on the things that have been, in front of me my entire life and that I have sacrificed everything for. And now all of a sudden I just want to, stop it all and go sing some silly songs and play the piano. And yeah, it is what I was made for, whether my path, was pointing me toward this at the beginning, because it certainly wasn't, but I can't stop it. I've tried. I really have. So.
Well, I do honestly think that is probably how you can tell that you are a true artist, because it didn't just stop at playing piano or learning to play piano at a young age and then growing beyond that, the piano experience. I mean, you obviously as an artist, you have a gift, so therefore there is something, those songs were in your head for a reason. They weren't just there to just be there. And
I don't know.
It kept gnawing at you. It kept gnawing at you, saying, you really need to do something with this.
It doesn't feel like such a gift. Sometimes it's like, oh, gosh, could it just be quiet inside my head for 5 minutes? That would be a gift. That would be a real gift.
Well,
Yeah,
I can certainly see, but, that just goes to show that music is what you're supposed to be doing. And, I have a son who's 17, and he's been playing drums since he was 6 years old. And early on, I knew that he would be playing drums one day, and he now plays, he loves it. He plays drums in the marching band in high school. He plays, he's the youth drummer for the youth worship band at church. I mean, he's recently been put on the rotation list for the regular morning worship service, as their drummer. So he's doing a lot of things with that, and I could tell as a young child he had that gift. It was not just a I want to play drums thing. It was something that was really born within him, and you know what I'm talking about. And it has stayed with him. And now, he's kind of branched out, and he started, writing a couple songs. He's written a couple praise and worship songs, and he picked up the guitar. He started playing guitar, and all that was born out of the initial desire to want to play drums. And so I can see him kind of starting to branch out into, other areas musically that, initially I didn't even realize that he would be finding or following. And so I think that to me is why I said, you are a true artist, because you are, it's within you, and it's just dying to get out. And my son, I see that within him. He'll kind of say, Mom, he gets really excited when he's written a song or he's written a chorus of a song and he's working on something, and he, so I understand all too well, even though I've never personally experienced that, but at least from my son's standpoint, I know that when it's within you, it's just something you got to do, you know, even if you try to suppress it and this, you know, it's just something that just continues to agate you until it happens, kind of thing. So
oh, that's so fantastic for him. That's really exciting.
Yeah, and you know, and I have no doubt that one day he'll be a drummer for some band somewhere. He just has that talent, that ability. So I do believe he'll go places. And of course, I remind him. I'll say, you know, when you make it big, don't forget about your old mom.
That's
you know, give him a hard time. But you know, do I get backstage passes time? That kind of thing. But no, seriously, it's great to see that. And you know, music is such. It's so universal, and it's so important, especially to kids, to have it in the schools and to have, you know, them be a part of it, because it's one of the best, I think, one of the best things they can learn while they're in school that provides the most discipline and teaches them the most discipline. Because if they can be disciplined in learning the music, you know, which is very difficult to learn as it is in some respects, it really does carry over into other areas of life, you know. So
you
there's
know,
a lot to be said for that.
It's so true. There's so many parallels, and that's one thing that was really shocking to me, you know, because, like I said, I kind of consider my life like there was the first part of it that was like the cave. I call it the cave, you know, because I kind of, it was like sheltered and very secluded. But you know, I think anything that you learn where you go really, really deep and you study detail and you develop a discipline for learning, and it doesn't matter what subject or what it is that you're learning, but you know, like for instance in classical music, you know, you have to analyze just incredibly detailed things, what the function of every single note. You know, all of those dots on the page, and the piece is 75 pages long, and you have to understand the function of every single note, why it moves to the next, and that kind of level of analysis, you know, is something that it's a skill that you have to develop. And then, you know, from there, like in my life, going out into, you know, like regular world things, I find that those same skills of understanding forms and understanding, you know, the function of little things in a greater whole, it applies to so many things. Like I become very intensely interested in other subjects and draw correlations all the time, and realize those skills that I developed there in music, just in many ways, you just draw little correlations, and all of a sudden you have a very deep understanding of a completely different set of concepts, which is just amazing. You know, it goes to what you're saying, like if we can teach people music because it's a language and it's so powerful and it's so inspiring and it's a universal, you know, it's something that every single human on the planet feels and hears and speaks. And if we can teach that and then have a chance for those things, like you say, to branch out into whatever it is, whether you become a musician for the rest of your life or not, I totally believe that they carry over into anything else that you do in your life. I think it's so important.
Oh, most definitely. And that's why I'm such a big advocate of it being in the school, because, you know, from the elementary level on up. You know, my two youngest children have been involved in, you know, band in middle and high school, and like I said, my son, he's in marching band, he plays the quints, but then my youngest daughter, she was in middle school band, and she also is a drummer. So this year is her first year in high school, and they're both in the marching band, they're both playing drums, but it, you know, that music has always been a part of their lives, and, you know, even as, you know, in elementary school, they were involved in musical type stuff, and it just stayed with them, and it, like you say, I think it has made all the difference in, you know, their academic ability and their abilities in other area and extracurricular things that they're involved in, just because they had that foundation and that something that taught them discipline in, you know, a way that was outside the bounds of mom and dad teaching discipline, you know, something that they really enjoyed. And because they don't realize it at the time, that what they're learning is kind of life lessons for down the road, you know,
Absolutely.
that will stay with them. And they'll have these epiphany moments that will come up that they'll go, oh, gosh, you know, I remember when I did this in music doing this, and, oh, gosh, this so applies here. And, you know, so there's no better, I don't believe there's no better thing in the schools that, you know, because like you say, music is universal, and it does bring people together, and it is kind of an identifier for everybody, no matter what walk of life you're from, or your background, or whatever, you know, whatever you're involved in as a human being. That is something that does connect people. And
yeah. My dad gives me a hard time all the time, like especially because you know he grew up. My dad was the seventh child out of 15 kids, which is really like, just crazy. Yeah. And they had a farm, and they got up every morning at 5 a.m., and they milked cows and, you know, moved sprinkler pipeline and did the hay thing and, you know, all of that stuff every morning at 5 in the morning, even Christmas morning, you know, and he would tell me all the time, you know, you're getting up at 5 o'clock every morning, and you don't get to go to any of these things. You know, like I never went to a birthday party or anything like that because it just didn't fit in my life. But he would tell me all the time, you know, I milked cows my entire life, and I learned discipline, and I learned responsibility, and I learned hard work, but it was cows, you know, and it's not giving me something other than those things. And like you say, I mean, the biggest gift is it's just incredible. Music is. It's just such a gift, so.
Yeah, I tell people often. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Another thing is I was a piano teacher also. It's kind of funny. I started teaching piano when I was 10 because, yeah, I know. But, like, by then I had already been practicing for 7 years and, like, really intensely practicing. I played my first concerto with the symphony when I was 7. So by the time I was 10, I was certainly more qualified than, you know, many of the piano teachers who will never perform, you know, a concerto ever, and it just sounds really crazy. But so I taught for, you know, a lot of years, and that's another, you know, big hero in my mind are the music teachers, the piano teachers, and the trombone teachers, and the drum teachers, and you know, because they can't learn it all in school, you know, the school music programs and stuff, they can't possibly give the attention, like the one-on-one attention that you do need to develop something really, really, you know, deep and intricate and stuff like that. And so that's another huge hero in my book. And they're so unloved and unappreciated and unsung.
Yeah.
You know, the neighborhood music teachers and stuff like that, but they're definitely my heroes, especially after having been part of that for such a long time.
Yeah, teachers in general, you know, as a whole, you know, they just don't get enough credit sometimes. But music teachers in particular, because of what they do, both of my children, you know, they had the same middle school band teacher, and she's just a phenomenal person, but she's amazing. You know, she really, you know, especially when they start out in 6th grade and they know nothing about playing an instrument, you know, and you just make them go outside to practice because you just can't take it kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's amazing, you know, it's amazing. You know she's an excellent teacher because the transformation you can clearly hear, you know, from 6th grade, that first concert in the fall, to 8th grade spring concert, you know, in 3 years' time, how much those kids have learned and grown and evolved, and they're playing music that is on the order of high school, you know, and and it's just amazing how far they come, and you know, and the amount of discipline they get just in that type of setting for that period of time really does stay with them and carries with them into high school if they continue music at that point. But yeah, I often tell people that if I had to choose between television and music, radio, I would definitely choose radio. I don't think I can go a day without hearing music. TV I can do without, but I love my music.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's just so important, and there's just a lot about it that speaks to you as an individual because, you know, no matter what kind of mood you're in, there's always a song to fit the mood, or there's always a song to pick you up when you're down. And, you know, and there's nothing else out there that can provide that to us, in that way.
Yeah.
It really does.
Well,
it fits, no matter what.
And as a songwriter, you're always trying to capture, the very intense details of the moment that you lived, and it's always so incredible when your words and your way of trying to capture your memory seem to fit really, really perfectly with so many other people's, their own separate individual memories, and that's another thing that's just so incredible, like the words and the music and being able to capture that and then have somebody else say, oh, that is exactly how I wish I had been able to say it, or that's exactly what it felt like for me, even though they weren't there and it was their own individual experience. And sometimes the two experiences are completely different, like a really, really good song can speak to so many different situations. So it's in my opinion, like a perfect marriage of two very powerful mediums, music and poetry and lyrics.
Yeah, and it's just amazing what music, what not only what you can do with music, but how as an artist you can take a song and whatever it means to you, you just never know how it's going to touch the listener and what it's going to come to mean to a listener.
You never
and that's
know.
Always, you never know.
You never know.
No pun intended there, honestly. It was no pun intended, honestly. I just like play on words we didn't even mean to. But in all seriousness, it is true. You don't ever know because everybody interprets songs and music differently. How I may interpret a song, the next person may hear it completely differently because it may have a whole completely different meaning for them. And that is just such a great thing, and why music is so important, because it really does capture the essence of feelings and emotions, and and that's one thing that I love about indie music, because indie artists they pour everything they've got into their music, and every indie artist that I've ever talked to or listened to their music, you can just hear the passion, and it's always a passion, and and the music is born out of a passion, and so I think that indie artist music is some of the best music out there, because you're getting, it's raw and it's real, and it's not, it's coming straight from the heart, and you can hear that as it's projected, to the listener, and it just doesn't get any better than that, because you can see almost the blood, sweat, and tears that were poured into the songs, and so it is a wonderful thing, and I want to kind of go back to your EP a moment. This EP is called Love Scars, and and I want to know, how did you come up with the title for your EP? Was there a story behind that, or?
Yeah, well, I discovered kind of halfway through recording all these songs that these were all, in one way or another, the scars of my own love story, because love stories are never without wounds, and those wounds eventually heal, and they do leave a scar, and, and I think that's what makes us individual, and I think it's what makes us as human beings interesting and compassionate and able to relate to other people. And so, my philosophy toward the scars that I have collected in my lifetime is that I love them, and I'm grateful for them and for the perspectives that they give me. So I decided, it was kind of two things. One, love your scars, love yourself, love, the path that you've walked, and then two, just the fact that love does leave scars, and these are a collection of my personal love scars, and I'm sure they probably speak to other people's own personal love scars. So that's kind of, and then I discovered that my name, is Scar. So I was like, I get so jazzed when I can say three things with one set of words. That's just,
I know.
you know, so there you go. There are two words that say three different things, and
yeah.
and that's why I went with it.
And I love your name. I mean, you know, you just don't hear. The last time I think I actually heard the word or the name Scarlett was, you know, in Gone with the Wind, Scarlett O'Hara. But but you have, you know, it's an amazing name, and it's so, you know, it's so trendy and so catchy especially for what you're doing. When I heard your music for the first time, and I was like, gosh, that music just fits her name. I mean, it's the name and the music and the artist just all go together. And now to know the story behind the title of your EP, that just kind of makes it fit all the more, you know.
Yeah.
Is there I mean, as many songs as you've written, do you have a favorite on the EP of all of them?
Let's see. On the EP, oh gosh, I don't know if I could choose a favorite. Some of them are my favorite to perform. Like Hold Me is so fun to perform because, you know, I have that perfect pitch thing, and so I don't have to have anything to tell me what note to start singing. So it's just like the stage is black, the house is black, and then I just, in the darkness, start that first little "Oh, Is Your Love" thing, and then the piano comes in, you know, a couple bars later. That is just so fun. And, you know, so I do love that one from a performing standpoint. Get to Me is in 6/8 time, and I am a complete sucker for a song in 6/8 time. I think the very first song I ever heard, like sing-song, not like you know, classical piece or whatever, but the first singing song I ever heard in 6/8 time was Surfer Girl by the Beach Boys. I was at like a family reunion, and my cousin had it on like a little mixtape on his Walkman, and he played it for me, and I just swooned immediately. And ever since then, it's just been like, oh man, if it's in 6/8, I can't really hold back. So I love that one for that reason. And you know, it's kind of like maybe children. You know, you couldn't choose one that's more your favorite. There are some though, you know, that I write, and like within, you know, 5 minutes, I'm like, oh, this is just rubbish, and I throw it away, and I never play it again because, you know, you can tell when it's inspired, and then other ones you're just like, oh, it's just complete rubbish, and I don't love them the same. But, yeah, anything that I've put together and released and given out into the world, it would be hard for me to choose. Do you have a favorite?
Oh, my gosh. You had to ask, didn't you? It's a hard,
well, you're not the only one who gets to ask the hard questions.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Well, you know, in truth, I have to narrow it down between Never Know and Funny. I like all your songs, though, because they're all so different. And, you know, and it's the thing I love about your music, Scar, is that it's like there's something for every mood. Whatever mood I'm in, I can just put on a song, and it's like, oh, this is cool. It fits whatever, you know. But I love those two songs. Those are probably my two favorite out of the EP, just because. Never Know was the first song I heard by you, and I was like, oh my gosh, this girl can sing. But you know,
that song's not even that hard to sing. The range on that song is like what, an octave maybe?
Well, I know, but I like I love everything about the song. I love the music, you know, the beat. It's just so catchy and fun, and just, you know, you just can't.
It kind of makes you smile, right?
Yes. If I was in a really bad mood, that is the song I would play. If I needed to be pulled out of the trenches of a bad mood, that is the song, because you just
that
kind of
makes
clip
me
along.
Happy.
You just clip along, you know, you're just kind of bouncing, and it's just, you know, you can't help but smile and I smiled the first time I heard it, because I was like, oh my gosh, you don't hear anything like this on regular radio. I mean, this is why I love indie music, because it's so, you never know what you're going to get. It's always a pleasant surprise. And so when I heard this song, I was like, oh my, it was one of those songs for me that the first time you hear it, you instantly like it. And you know, I actually listened to it in its entirety the first time through, and then I had to play it again. I was like, I got to hear this again. This is so good. And
that is the biggest compliment. The whole repeat thing, that's a compliment. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. It really, you know, your EP just has a lot to offer, and you know, it doesn't matter what kind of, you know, people have their favorite genres of music per se, and I think we all do to a point. But your EP is one of those that no matter what kind of genre you like, there's something for everybody. So it's kind of a one-size-fits-all kind of EP. There's a lot to offer, and so you don't find that because a lot of times, I keep going back to what I said earlier in our conversation, and that is, most artists, they have their one genre and their one niche that they perform from because that's what they do, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's what makes them who they are, and that's awesome as well. But it is always a nice breath of fresh air when you have someone like you who comes along, and you not only just, you don't just have one genre, you have so much diversity there that it's just unbelievable what you have to offer the listener. It's like you really, you buy your stuff, and it's like, oh, we're really getting our money's worth. Is what it feels like.
Well, it's really weird because you listen to some of the albums of, maybe 3 decades ago or even 2 decades ago, and I don't feel like those albums were so, monochromatic the way albums now seem to be made. I feel like if you listen through, a Queen album or a Michael Jackson album, you could get so many different flavors, and I feel like we've maybe become scared or homogenized or something. I don't know, because that is, to be honest, like the biggest, not problem, but the biggest hurdle that I run into is people saying, well, I just don't really know what box to put you in. And, so you really just need to choose your box and figure out, what your box is going to be and where you're going to live. And it's like, well, but why would I do that?
Yeah, exactly.
All the albums that, because as soon as I came out into the world of popular music and started pouring through, and I still just pour through and I try to discover as fast as I can all of the things that I didn't hear before. And as soon as I did, it was just like this, you can imagine this barrage of everything from left field to right field to outfield to whatever. It was just, every flavor, and I couldn't get enough. But even within one album, I feel like there used to be so much more bravery in, and I still listen to albums, I can't stand, and I know that I'm old-fashioned for a young person, but I can't stand just choosing one song, I want to hear the whole entire thing, and so when I hear an entire album and every single song sounds like basically the same flavor, I just get so bored. I'm like, you didn't take me on a journey, I want to go on a journey with you, and I want, by the time I get done, to feel as if I've lived with you, and even I know what your skin smells like, and where you dump your trash and stuff like that. So
exactly,
so I'm in love with stuff like that.
I really appreciate you being an artist saying that, because of course, with me sitting on this side of the mic and listening to music all the time, as part of what I do, it's I've thought that so many times because our music has changed, from 2 decades ago, like you say, back, 70s, 80s. There was so much diversity, and artists and bands were more original, and they were more true to their craft and more true to what they did. And record labels were not as concerned about trying to package them into one little box. So, but nowadays, you've got dance music, and you got hip-hop, and you got all these different genres, and it's almost like there's this set of guidelines that in order to have music in these genres, you have to follow these guidelines. And because so much of it sounds the same. And again, that's one of the main reasons, nothing against mainstream music or, the artists who are out there doing that, because, obviously they've got incredible talent, and that's what they do. But that is one of the reasons why I love indie music so much, because there is, it's a lot like the music from 2 decades ago. Artists are not afraid to do what they do because they do it well, and they stay true to what they do, and they're not afraid to branch out and take those risks, and they don't, and that is independent music, and independent artists have more control over what they're able to do and what they want to do than, someone who is under some big record label and they're being told every moment, what they can and can't do in the studio. And it's a huge difference, and it makes all the difference. And I say it all the time that indie music is, I believe, the music industry's unintentional best-kept secret, because the best music that I'm hearing nowadays is coming out of the indie music market. And indie music now is not what it used to be, 5-10 years ago, where that was kind of a genre all its own. Independent music is now all genres kind of coming into this part of it, and there is just so much to offer and so much incredible talent that's just hidden and yet to be tapped, and that, the mainstream radio people just are missing out on, to be quite honest. I mean, it adds so much more color to it,
Well, and we have such a, I know that everybody is moaning, oh, the music industry is in the toilet and stuff like that, but I frankly feel the opposite. I mean, it's just like, yes, it is difficult to, replicate the model of 10 years ago. Yes, it is difficult to get 15 million people to buy an album for the one or two good songs, and I personally celebrate that. And all of us that are creating music have such a giant microphone and amazing platform, and you can talk, like I talk directly to my fans every single day. That is just incredible. And, it's just, I don't think it's in the toilet at all. I think it's an incredible, fertilizer for, like you say, like everybody who has just passion and they want to pour it into what they're going to create, and there isn't, just 2 or 3 gates that you have to walk through anymore.
Right.
At the same time, I always celebrate somebody who is creating from an independent space but still has the ability to reach, a mass audience, because, as obviously as a creator, well, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say obviously, but for me as a creator, I'm very driven by a desire to reach a huge number of people. And I don't know where that comes from, but it definitely isn't something that will ever go away. But at the same time, I'm not willing to, homogenize myself and decide, okay, I'm going to fit through one of these 2 or 3 gates so that I can, use your microphone, because your microphone broadcasts to the number of people that I want to reach. I'm not willing to do that. I'm just going to keep on fighting in my own way. But at the same time, I have equal passion. 1 is to reach a huge amount of people, and 2 is to create something that's completely authentic and raw and heartfelt. So it's definitely going to be an uphill kind of thing for me. But like you say, it's what makes independent music so inspiring and so touching and so actually real,
And I agree with you wholeheartedly. I don't think that the music industry is tanking, because when you look at social media and how it has evolved and exploded, and you've got, independent artists, I think are really, while the record labels may claim they're suffering and, because, you have iTunes and all these other modules now for music, the independent artists are really using to their advantage, social media platforms, YouTube and Twitter and Facebook and all the different areas that social media has to offer, where they can get out and broadcast themselves and, and get their music out. And, a lot of artists. Yeah,
like
and
mainstream music is starting to change. Sorry, I keep interrupting you.
But I don't know about you, but I believe it's starting to change because the independent music market is becoming so strong. And when you have an independent artist that's out here that's unsigned, and they have a website, and they've got all the bells and whistles of, promoting their brand, and they have their music, and they're offering, they'll give a listener 2 songs for free download. I mean, a listener is I think as a listener, we're always looking for new music, new artists to learn, to like, and to follow, and to check out their music. And, we're looking for something new and different, because listeners get bored too. We get tired of hearing the same kind of prepackaged, if you will, material all the time.
Yeah.
And this is such a breath of fresh air, because there's so much to choose from. And, And to be able to have that, you know, is a better alternative. And then when you have an artist that's willing, you know, who is not signed, who's not making hardly anything, you know, but they're willing to let you download a whole album or for free just so they can get their music out. That speaks volumes to listeners, you know.
Yeah.
And I do believe that is probably, if there's anything that's giving mainstream music and that part of the music industry a little bit to be nervous about, I would have to say it's this side of the music world because of what the independent artists are doing. And that just kind of goes along with the whole passion that's born into the music as it is for an artist. You know, you're lock, stock, and barrel doing it from all sides, not just performing and writing and so forth, but really doing your level best to get your stuff out there so people can enjoy it and hear it and know who you are. So it's just very important. It's working. So, you know,
well, I'm glad. I'm glad. I mean, not that I would stop even if it wasn't, because I really wouldn't. But I, you know, I do feel really, really fortunate. I can't believe even just in this small amount of time the number of people I've been able to reach, and it's just so incredible. I can't wait for the next batch of music to give it and see who I can reach with that. I love it. And I'm always telling my fans on Facebook, I could get on there, I'm like, don't buy my music. It's for free everywhere. Like, you can hear it on YouTube, on my website, on Spotify, like on SoundCloud. It's free everywhere. Don't buy it. I don't want you to buy my music because that's not what I made it for. I made it as a creative gift and something that we can experience together, and it's just so cool because, you know, like especially on Facebook, you can message people, or on my website, people message me, and they tell me the most. I mean, like, I have fans that are so intensely devoted. They'll get on every single morning and write me, like, a quote for the day and their favorite lyric of the day and wish me a blessed and beautiful day and morning. And I get on there every single morning, and I talk to every single one because it's so important to me. And it's so thrilling to me. Like, would I trade that for 99 cents? Well, and then iTunes is going to take 30 cents, so what, I get like 79 or what? No, not in a million years. I don't care about that. It's just,
you know, Scar, you can't put a price on that, plain and simple. I mean, and those are the rewards for what you do. You know, the gifts that you offer to the listeners and your fans and followers, you know, that is your reward. And there's no greater reward. You know, it kind of is like it just kind of comes back full circle, and that also, you know, I think anything we're ever passionate about, be it music or whatever it is you're into, it, you know, as an individual, when you're doing it for the right reasons and you're doing it simply because you love it and because you're passionate about it, you know, you don't mind giving it away because that's part of what you want to do. I mean, that's part of, you know, you don't have like this agenda to go, you know, become rich and famous, and you really just want to offer, you know, show people what you can do and share that with them. And and that goes so much farther, you know.
I honestly feel like we have so much to listen to and so much hitting at us every single day. Like, it's not even a compliment if someone wants to buy your music. It's a compliment if someone wants to spend the 3.5 minutes to listen to it. You know, like, that is a huge compliment because it's, you know, in a lot of ways I kind of feel like somebody buying something is even less of a compliment than spending the time. And, you know, because, like, we buy, you know, lattes at Starbucks, and that's not really, you know, we're not thinking, like, of making a bond and a commitment and whatever, but at the same time, like, if I give 3.5 minutes to one track, that's the greatest compliment because I don't have time. Like, I get on Spotify every single day, and I listen to tons of things, and I'll admit there are songs that I listen all the way through and then repeat, but for the most part, it's like you get a verse and a chorus, and if by the time the verse and the chorus, if I haven't felt my heartbeat, then I'm like, okay, I'm going to find something else, you know? So if somebody has 3.5 minutes for me, I don't care about their 70 cents. I want their 3.5 minutes. I want their heart, you know? So, anyway, that's my
and that's the way I see it. If they do that, then, you know, the likelihood that they'll, you know, as you have already seen evidence of, you know, they're going to take in the next song you put out there, they're going to take that 3.5 minutes or however long it may be, and pour themselves into taking time to listen to it again and be able to claim it as their own in terms of adding it to, their mix of music on iPod and sharing it with their friends and saying, hey, have you heard of Scarlett Rabe? And, listen to this. And I don't know that there's any better, word of mouth is the best form of advertising you can ever have, but to be able to have people take what they've heard because they love it and share it with who they care about and their friends and family and so forth, that goes so much farther than just, like you say, them going to iTunes and downloading, a song for 99 cents and adding it to the mix on iPod and not giving it another thought, just getting it for the sake of getting it kind of thing, So
exactly.
it is a lot more meaningful, in that way.
Exactly.
Yeah. We only have just a few more minutes, and I wanted to take a moment to ask you really quickly, is there anyone in the industry, past, present, that you would really want to work with or collaborate with?
Oh gosh, yes. I have this thing. I took an orange Sharpie and I wrote on my ceiling when I first got to LA the very first name of somebody that I wanted to meet, and I then Mod Podged a picture of his face on my ceiling, and then I kept on doing it. Like, as I was reading through people, just every once in a while, somebody who I would read about them, and it would just make my heart, really pound, and I just knew that that was somebody that I wanted to have a chance to meet. And so there's, 7 or 8 names on my ceiling, and I've gotten to meet a lot of them, actually, just in the last little while, just kind of, as word has been spreading and stuff. So I can't really name any names because I'm actually talking to several of them about working with me on this next project. But it's funny because I was at lunch with one of them just recently, and I told him, I was like, I have to admit to you that every night when I go to sleep and every morning when I wake up, there's this little picture of you and your name in orange Sharpie on my ceiling saying, keep going, little star, keep going. Like, you got a hell of a long way to go still. Just keep working. And he just laughed. He thought it was slightly probably stalkerish, but mostly sweet, because I do believe that everybody loves to know that they've inspired someone. So I can't name any names, definitely. But yes, I'm definitely very excited to already be talking to some of the people that I've just dreamed of meeting. And
that is amazing. That is amazing.
That will come out hopefully sooner than later.
Well, as I was listening to your music, and earlier this just kind of popped in my mind when I was thinking about asking you this question, but somebody that I think would be, now you have such a perfect vocal range, I don't know how you would feel about this, but in my opinion, someone that I think it would be so neat for you to collaborate with is Michael Bublé.
Yes.
Because his music is really, he's similar to you in that, he can do a lot of different things in music. Yeah. And he, no matter what he sings, he fits whatever he sings. And, and I love his style. His style is so,
well, his voice, for one, makes you just want to swoon.
Yes, and he can sing so many classic, songs that are timeless. And he can sing them and make them sound brand new and fresh all over again. But I could so see a collaboration between the two of you. I mean, I really could because of your musical style.
You've definitely hit the nail, or at least one of the nails on the head, because that's definitely something that I've given a lot of thought and dream to. So hopefully that will be something that comes to pass.
I hope it comes to fruition for you, because I could really see that being a very real possibility in terms of, musical collaboration and talent. Gosh, I mean, that would be awesome. So, but
he's got all that nostalgic music and the horns and everything. Yes. It just kills me. I love it. So yeah, for sure.
You would be amazing on that stuff too, because that's, I don't know, from your classical upbringing, and you're so classically trained, and you your style kind of leans towards that to some degree, it would just be a perfect fit for you, in my opinion. So,
well, give him a call and let him know. And
I will. When we hang up, I'll call his agent and say, "Hey, I got this artist. Yeah. I wish I had that kind of pull. Believe me, it would be wonderful for everybody." But no, seriously, I guess in a roundabout way, I'm trying to say that you are an amazing talent, and I really believe that as time goes on, you're going to be one of those artists that we're just going to hear more and more from, and you will be timeless. You will, live on long after many others have kind of retired and left the music scene, and to me, you're kind of in that. If you want me to give you a category that you're in, you're kind of in the Josh Groban and Michael Bublé category, because they've been on mainstream radio, but yet they do things, and they've got huge fan followings, and they really love what they do, and they're passionate about what they do, and and they just, you can't really classify their music as having a specific niche or genre. It just is, just is, and people love it, and that's the kind of artist I see you being. You don't have a specific place that you are that people can say, yeah, she does this. You just are,
Well, thank you.
And that's,
thank you.
That's the best way I know to describe you, because most artists, right away what they, whether R&B or their country or whatever they are, by their music, that you have that ability to just be someone that could be pretty much anything you want it to be, in terms of that. So I am looking forward to that collaboration with Michael Bublé down the road. Josh, or anyone else along those lines, I'll be listening. And whatever you do, please send it my way, and I will make sure to play it.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Dawn.
By the time you get to that level where you're teaming up with those guys, you won't need me promoting your music any longer.
Please take that back.
I will.
That back.
I was totally joking. I will always be happy to play anything that you do. I just love you. You've got a new fan in me. And
I will always appreciate it.
Yes, I am anxiously awaiting any new stuff that you have coming out to hear, because with Scarlett Rabe, you just never know what you're going to get, and it's always
you just
a
never
surprise.
know.
So, yeah, you never know. There's
you never
that
know.
Again, no pun intended.
You never know.
That's true. Well, I can't believe the hour is up already. It has been.
I know. It's such a shame. We'll have to do it again.
I know we will, and I would love to talk with you again down the road and have the listeners, hear what's going on with you. And so before we let you go, do you have anything, big and upcoming? Are you performing anywhere that, the listeners would need to know about in case they're in your area?
I'm not. I'm just focusing everything on the creation of new music right now. So, and hopefully it will be quick. So, and I will let you know for sure.
Great. Well, we look forward to it, and this has been a blast. I've certainly enjoyed having you here, and we would definitely have to do it again in the very near future. And before we sign off tonight, I want to thank all the listeners who have tuned in and joined us tonight. We certainly appreciate you taking time out of your busy lives and schedules to be with us. And Scarlett, thank you so much again for being here as well.
Thank you, too. And thank you all the listeners. Hugs and kisses from Scarlett Rabe.
There you go. And we're going to close our show tonight with your song Funny, which is also one of my favorites on the EP.
Love it.
And check out Scarlett Rabe on Twitter, Scarlett Rabe, and you can find her all over the place. Just Google her
everywhere.
If you need to. And,
that's right.
Her EP is Love Scars, and this is a cut off of that called Funny. I want to say goodnight to everyone. We'll be back here on Sunday evening for the Indie Artist Showcase at 7 p.m. Enjoy your weekend, everyone, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks again. Goodbye.
Blog Talk Radio, where millions of hosts and listeners gather.
just so crystal clear. And, you know, you just make it sound effortless when you sing. You don't, you know, you reach those notes, but yet it just doesn't sound like you're having to work that hard for them, you know. And it just comes off very, very believable. And so, of course, you know, that was kind of what came to mind when I heard your music, because I was like, wow, you know, and, you know, your voice is just amazing. So,
thank you. Thank you. That's very
you know,
sweet.
So let's talk about this music, your EP. How long did it take you to kind of get it together and put it together from start to finish?
Well, I would say I actually made a huge collection of songs. I spent about a year in the studio, and previous to that, I had just been mainly like classical pianist, and my life before that was it was kind of interesting. In my house, there was a lot of like Christian music, religious music. My parents were intensely religious, and then obviously a ton of classical music. But anything outside of those two kinds of music, there wasn't really anything allowed except for just like little snippets that I would hear like on the bus or at an assembly at school and stuff like that. And I actually snuck. There was a radio show. I don't even know like what it was, but her name was Carla Fox, and it was 99.9 in Arizona. I don't even know what the show was, but I would sneak like listens at night sometimes to that show. But anyway, so when it came time for me to like decide that I wanted to do an album, I was still really, really fresh, I guess, and didn't really know what the stuff inside my head would sound like outside, you know, in the air. So I spent like a year, and I produced tons of songs, like everything that I, you know, had wanted to put down. And
Blog Talk Radio, the world's largest online radio network.
Hello, it is Friday night, and this is the Jammin Jukebox radio show. This is your host, DJ Delta Dawn, and I am so excited to bring to you our guest tonight. She is beautifully and talented, and she's a pop artist, and she has an amazing voice. And you just heard her in the opening number, and I'm talking about Scarlett Rabe, and that was her song, Never Know. And I'd like to introduce her to you now. Hello, Scar.
Hi, Dawn. How are you?
I'm great. How are you this evening?
I'm lovely. I'm happy and kind of tired, but quite lovely. Thank you.
Well, we appreciate you being with us tonight and taking time out of your very busy schedule to spend some time with us and the listeners. It is.
I've been really looking forward to it. Really,
I know,
looking forward to it. Yeah.
I know, it's been amazing. The first time I heard your music, I was just in awe because the range on your voice is just absolutely incredible. You have quite the range.
Thank you.
I know. I really love, I came across your song, Never Know, which is what I opened the show with, and I was like, wow, this is catchy, this is fun, but her voice is amazing. So I knew at that moment I've got to get her on. I've got to get the listeners have got to hear this. So we've been, playing your songs pretty heavily since I received your music. And thank you, by the way, for sending that over to us. And it's just, it's just been great to have it added to the mix of what we do here. And even better that we were able to finally, come together and set a time so we could, sit down and have a little chat about what you do and where things are headed for you. I guess the best way to kind of start out tonight is to ask, where did you get your musical beginnings, or how long have you actually been singing and so forth?
Well, I guess I've been singing my entire existence, possibly even when I was, and I chose for the EP just like the 6 that were the most, I guess, easily listenable or whatever, but the things that I love to do go everywhere from like jazzy, like bluesy shantu singers all the way to like, Love in an Elevator. And so it's just,
yeah.
So I chose just like a small sampling of the ones that I've done. And so, I don't know if I could say how long it took me to do, that specific part of the EP. It was just more of a journey that I started and have kept doing since. Even though I released the EP almost a year ago, I've been writing more and in the studio more, producing more, and still discovering what it is that I'm going to sound like when when I reach what I know I am. I'm still kind of in that journey right now.
Well, I love how you describe that because when I listened to your EP, I was, it really is a good compilation of a lot of different styles and genres of music. And, one song you might get, a little bit of jazz or, this, and then you might get a rock edge to another song. It just, like I was saying earlier, it just really showcases your talent as an artist. And, a lot of artists, they have that one genre or that one niche that they, kind of, envelop themselves within. And that's their thing. And it's always refreshing when you can have an artist like yourself that can kind of step out of that box, so to speak, and do more than just, what people might know you for or what have you. It's really nice because it does offer a lot of versatility and, a lot of diversity in terms of your music. So it's like you have a lot to offer, all different types of listeners of music, which is really nice.
Yeah, and it's so fun to kind of put, a different hat on for the day and try something else. I will say, though, that, like as a pianist, there is like a certain amount of work that you put into like just being able to play something like at perfect speed or like with perfect technique and fingering and everything, and then you get it to that point, and then after that you're allowed to kind of let it fall apart a little bit, but on purpose. And like you can play with the timing and you can play with some of the interpretation, and like, so I guess if you were like to draw a line before you get to that place where you can do it perfectly, like without any slowing down or any mistakes or anything like that, it still might be like a little bit taken apart and not quite, put together. But then the taken apart and not quite put together on the other side of being able to do it perfect is a different thing because you're in control of everywhere where you're letting it fall apart or you're letting it be like a certain thing. And that's been my focus. Like, I guess that's kind of an analogy for an artist who maybe could like do a bunch of different things, but it's been really my focus to still discover what it would be if I could focus all of those things, and have the discipline to focus it all into something that is, cohesive. So it would still be, does that make sense? Because then after that, it's like, yeah, sure, you can go off and do a jazzy thing or whatever, but, I do still feel like it's really important for the listeners to not be confused by who I am and what exactly it is that I'm trying to create. So that's kind of, it's kind of the two-way street of loving and creating so many things at the same time, like really, really focusing on the discipline of pulling it all together. Like I still see this. And according to my mom, I just came out really, really musical. There's this kind of funny story about when I was 3 and I got on the piano bench and started playing this little sonatina that my mom had just finished teaching to one of her piano students, and I don't remember that happening, but my mother tells me that she freaked out, and I can imagine that she would, and I was just kind of playing by ear, but I guess was just really natural at it. I don't remember ever a time in my existence that I wasn't a pianist, so it was pretty early in my life.
Well, and that was you answered my question. I was going to ask you if you were playing piano on the hit we heard as the show opened, Never Know.
Yeah, there's not a lot of piano in that track. I play almost all of the instruments on my album, with the exception of the horns, because I'm not a horn player. But there was some guitar in there. Not a whole lot of piano in that track, but other ones are much more piano heavy.
Well, you're very, very talented. You know, as I've listened to several of your tracks off of your EP, I've been amazed because every track is very different from one another, and just you really can see the range that you have and how it is showcased on each track. I mean, it is just amazing. And honestly, I have not heard a vocalist that had the range that you have and have perfect pitch, probably since the likes of Mariah Carey. You know, she just can go all over the place. But
no, you did not just put me in a sentence with Mariah Carey. Like, I don't know if I can let that one. I don't know if I can let that one stay. But thank you. That's really sweet.
I think when I think about and I'm no music like teacher. You know, I'm no American Idol judge or anything like that. But the thing about it, your music is your sound. Your voice is